Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Our conversation tonight is centered on the worrying rise in cases of femicide in the country. Let's set the pace with worrying statistics released recently by the National Police Service. Startling figures show that 129 women were killed between January and March this year alone, with 43 cases reported in January, 42 cases reported in February, and 44 cases reported in March. According to a police report presented to the Technical Working Group on Gender-Based Violence, the National Police Service report highlights a troubling rise in femicide cases countrywide, with 579 victims recorded in 2024, a sharp increase from 534 cases recorded in 2023. Weapons used in femicide vary, but sharp objects top the list at 40%. As you can see there, the weapons that are used, blunt objects, strangulation, and firearms as well. Let's take a look at the people who are the perpetrators, and unfortunately, it's most femicide incidences happen where women are supposed to be safe at home. 60% of the statistics recorded happen to show that the femicide incidences happen where women are supposed to feel safe. On to the other boat that looks at the perpetrators, where most of the perpetrators are actually the people who are trusted, family members, 60%, intimate partners at 25%, strangers at 10%, and neighbors contribute to 5% of the femicide cases. So those are the statistics, the latest statistics by the National Police Service. And we just want to have a conversation stemming from that sharp rise on femicide cases in the country. And my guest in studio will be helping us shed light on some of the solutions that are needed to end this scourge. Allow me to introduce them. On my immediate right, I'm joined by Zaha Indimuli, who's the National Advocacy Coordinator at the End Femicide Kenya. Asante sana for your time. Welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
Equally joined by Jared Odur, who's a counseling psychologist. Jared, it's great to have you with us once again. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And we're equally joined by Njoki Gashanja, who's a coordinator at Githurai Social Justice Center. Karibu sana. Well, gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for your time. And we're having this conversation at a time when we've seen the sharp increase in femicide cases in the country. I'd just like to begin with quick reaction. Remember, this is more of a conversation in order to shed light and impact knowledge on our viewers. Njoki, beginning with you, what's your reaction? Looking at the average across these 3 months in 2025, there's an average of 40 women who are involved in femicide, and it's quite unfortunate. What's your immediate reaction to that?
I think the fact that we have not had the nation at a standstill at this particular point is really, really disappointing. Because to say, you know, when you say 40, it doesn't sound as serious as when you start mentioning names and all the families that are actually affected due to this femicide. So at this particular point, this is just, it's a reflection of where we are as a country and how the systems have failed us, especially the women in this country.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Over to you, Indimuli, because 60% of these femicide cases occur in homes. Ironically, these homes are supposed to be the safe spaces for women, but tragically it accounts as the most dangerous environment. Equally, family members top the list of perpetrators at 60%. Your take on this?
I think it's important for us to recognize how intentional femicide is. And so when we're bringing the attention to the fact that the family unit happens to be the most unsafe, and we saw that with the database of UN Women, whereby home becomes the most unsafe place for a woman to exist in, it becomes predominantly important for us to check in what are the laws that protect a woman even in her household. And as a situation whereby the family unit becomes a very centralized place that is not necessarily rendered as a government intervening space, it becomes very important, a call to action to the country to bring to this discussion how important it is for us to look at what the woman is going through in the household and the gap that femicide has created over and over again with these murders. It's not only a call to action and a call to absolute horror. And as Njoki had said, it's not just to call to a country to stand still. This is a national emergency because we're not just seeing women being killed at their homes. This is the predominant place where women are in charge. And if they're murdered in the space of their safety, then where else are women safe?
Key questions, and we'll be delving deeper into that. But Jared, as you come in, you're a psychologist, and at the end of the day, we've seen so many reports out there. There's a common narrative, commonly referred to as Stockholm Syndrome, where the victims form empathy towards the perpetrators. Talk to us about the extent of psychological manipulation and how this manipulation plays a role in victims being tethered to their abusers despite ongoing harm time and time again.
Thank you very much, Jesse. First of all, I would say that it's quite alarming that such heinous acts happen within our family circles. The family is the fallback point to all of us, but it also forms the root and the basis of everything that we do. And when we find that the percentage is like higher at the family level, then there's something that there's a worrying trend that we need just to think about. And on the psychological aspect, there is much more that is happening on the ground. The social aspect of each and every one of us that we really need to sit back and ask ourselves what could be going wrong. Because I feel that all these things that are happening around us might be also having some triggers within the family levels. So in the psychological perspective, we could delve into issues of the triggers that bring the family to this point and makes all this thing to happen. My colleagues have even spoken and hinted out on some of it could be even the economic aspect, and some of it could be deeply entrenched issues that the family is going through. But again, we will have to see that why women facing it more than anybody else. But if you look at the psychological aspect, I would see that it is too much on everybody. But again, we want to strike a balance on who is the greater stimuli in the family and who is the lesser stimuli in the family. And I feel for this, in this case, women are suffering much because what other family members hold, they push on them because of their vulnerability and the way they can't contain. So it is a greater stimuli pushing all the burden to the lesser stimuli. And that's why we realize that we find that all these things happen, even at the family level.
So there are victims who are still attached to the perpetrators.
Yes.
And you've come across such. What drives someone to stay with someone who's an abuser? Is it psychological? Talk to us. Is it cultural? Or what are some of the issues that arise from such instances?
Okay. The bigger part is the patriarchal way approach.
Okay.
That we have been groomed in a way and patterned in a way of how we can embrace ourselves within the family system. And for example, if we are talking about a victim, you are talking about somebody like there is a way that I've been groomed to relate, maybe to my father, maybe to my uncles or the people around me. So sometimes, even as we look at the patriarchal way and as we look at the cultural way, we are also seeing some aspect that we are inhibiting. We are not allowed at some point to come out and voice out what happens silently within the family setups. And this makes it a little bit difficult to deal with the problem. And so even the perpetrators will not be easily identified because of a way that people see that it will be a shame to the community, a shame to the family, a shame to the society. So this way of suppressing issues is what is making things not to come out, and thereby we find ourselves at a point whereby we cannot have solution to this. But it's now high time that we come out and address all these things, because even once when you talk about the perpetrator, sometimes these perpetrators that are around us are people who are like connected to us in one way or the other. They might also be the breadwinners of the family, and therefore I don't want to bring this thing out because of this person doing it. My father is doing it. And I don't want to speak it out because I lose him, I lose other aspect of my of life. So somehow we would want just to embrace them and to allow them to stay around us, because there is nothing we can do.
Njoki, as you come in, because he's painted a realistic picture. Some of these perpetrators are not just family friends, but you're tied to them economically, socially, should I say culturally as well. So talk to us about the safe spaces. Are there enough safe spaces for victims to come out and speak about their issues before it ends up to be just another statistic about a woman being killed?
Unfortunately, we don't have enough safe spaces in the country, and this has led, to these cases not actually even getting reported. Even the few safe spaces that we have that are being run by NGOs and government agencies can only take up victims for to at least 2 weeks, and then after that you have become a burden, because there has not, there's still not a plan, a sustainability plan to actually have these safe spaces, run. But one of the things that we also need to talk about, even as we're talking about the safe spaces, is how these victims are handled when they report these cases. Right now in the country, they're trying to establish gender-based violence cases in all police stations. But you go to these GBV desks that are in the police stations. First of all, even the police officers that you get there do not even know how to handle the victims. They victim blame by asking questions like, ulikuwa umevaa nini? Ulikuwa unafanya nini? Na wewe, unajua tukishika mzee, nani atasomesha watoto? You know, so these are supposed to be the safe spaces that we actually have. The other places, the church, where women run to, to the pastor, and they will open up about the problems that they're having in their families and in their relationships. And the pastors will tell them, go and find a closet somewhere in your house and pray, fast and pray until your knees hurt and your husband will change. So things like religion, the government institutions that are supposed to be safe spaces for these women are no longer safe spaces, and this is how because it's a pattern. Femicide does not just happen. It starts with a slap. Tomorrow it's a kick, the next day it's a bang on the wall, and the next day it's a panga, and before we know it we have a cross on the grave. So these are patterns that have been normalized in the society, and the safe spaces that women are supposed to have are no longer safe spaces for them.
And that's quite unfortunate, and perhaps it begs the question, Zaha, should this GBV desks be moved from police stations? Is it more accommodative if they're perhaps held in hospitals where these women can actually not just get the much needed health issues looked at, but equally counseling and whatnot? Because at times police officers are a little bit too abrasive, as has been mentioned by Njoki. What's your take on that briefly?
It's interesting because even with the question that you ask, it makes it look like women are a separate entity from the rest of the population, and that we require a special desk and a special connotation in the hospital or in the police station that attends to women issues. We're talking about a gender that is forming 51% of the population. So as you're having an economic and a social and a cultural and a judicial and all these other systems that run a country, women issues should be central in whatever amalgamation you're having in the society. And it begs the question, should we put a GBV desk in the police station or in the healthcare center? Gender-based violence speaks to both genders. When we are raising the issue of femicide, we're talking about women who have been intentionally killed just of the courtesy of the fact that they're women. So it looks as if we automatically continue to speak to the perpetrator more than we speak to the victims. And so we constantly tell the government that you're supposed to do this differently for the women, do this differently for the women. Why not mainstream the processes that women experience just as men? It's easier, and I'll speak the truth in this space. It's easier for you to walk outside this street right now at this particular time and safely get home than it is for me as I leave this studio today.
Sure.
Courtesy of the fact that I have to remember me being a woman is automatically a death sentence. Also courtesy of the fact that I will not reach home before I am catcalled, before I am chased upon, before I am put in situations that I have not assigned for. What does it mean then for the government? Should I receive a desk in the police station or in the hospital for me to feel safer? No. Everything around me as a woman should be as safe as you are. And so when we tell the government to do better, we're not calling upon a special agency or a special office for women to receive special treatment. We're looking at the fact that as we form 51% of the population, so should we form 51% of all programmatic systemic endeavors that the government looks upon. The economic crisis is a brunt on women. The political crisis is a brunt on women. Even war in Congo is solidified to put on the backs of women. Women have centrally been at the forefront of receiving everything that doesn't work in a system. So where should these offices be? Let's say, for example, if it's a gender desk, it should be everywhere. Children are being raped in school. Sexual assault is happening in churches. We had a sister being murdered in Rondo. Then does it mean that the priests are killing them? Absolutely not. This desk should exist in every single place where a woman is, from the market to the church to the school to the school. Courtesy of the fact that if it is not me that is killed today, if it is not the woman I saw, if it is not Starlet Wahu, absolutely the future generation cannot exist in their womanhood. Courtesy of the fact that I have to be born into a space that systemically reminds me to do better, to do more careful in everything that I do, because my gender puts me on a death sentence.
Interesting. And I just want to shift focus briefly because there's a newly sworn in gender cabinet secretary. She's called Hannah Cheptumo. And not too long ago, she made controversial remarks about femicide and gender-based violence. And while she was responding to questions on how she would address the alarming rise in femicide, particularly amongst university students, the CS suggested that victims were partly to blame, claiming that many young women fall prey because they're, quote-unquote, looking for money. Listen in.
We also have challenges to do with, I've said education. Education, yes. If a woman is educated, chances are that they will avoid some of these challenges which are there in the society. So we need to encourage our girls.
The girls who have been killed in Airbnbs are in universities. They're educated.
They're educated, but those ones are looking for money. Yes.
Wow. All right, it's a controversial bite right there, but it's proper to note that the cabinet secretary apologized for the insensitive remark. But let's take a look at her argument and whether it holds water. Njoki, I'd like to begin with you because from where you sit, is femicide largely as a result of economic dependency?
First of all, let us make it very clear. Women looking for money is not a crime, and they should not die because they are looking for money. Being an ambitious woman is not a crime. But you see, one of the things, and when I started, I spoke about how femicide is really just a snippet of what is happening in the country. Because after her utterances, there was outcry. People came out and said, this person is not even suitable to serve in that. But what happened? What happened right now, the president, approved the nomination and said, we believe in this woman, this is a woman whose husband died, so you people should not be very, this country is ridiculous because it is a country that does not listen to its people. There was public outcry about her nomination, about the utterances, and that she is going to be the CS for gender.
She is the CS.
Yes, and that she is the CS for gender is very, very sad, you know, because now she will even represent a people that she doesn't even relate to. I will not feel represented as a woman by her because there is a total disconnect, you know. And this is where we are at with the government, where the public will say one thing and then the government will just do whatever it wants to do, you know. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I'd like your take, Zaha, before we cross over to Jared.
My take will be as tough as everything that I've said since I had her very mediocre interview. And, you know, it's very important for us to mention that just because you're a woman does not mean you're incompetent. So when you're incompetent, whether you're a woman or a man, your eviction should be, in fact, premature. Well, the appointment of Jeptumo for me was a betrayal not only to women and the girls of this country, it was also a very big betrayal to all the victims of femicide. Connoting the fact that she was specifically asked about the murders that are happening to university students who are very much educated, regardless of the fact that she mentioned that if education was something that is provided to women, they would not be murdered. Let's take a step back to the femicide cases. We saw Starlet Wahu being killed in an Airbnb. We saw Lucy Jambi being murdered and having drenched 2 liters of sulfuric acid in her. We're talking about wives, we're talking about intimate partner violence, and so that you know the mediocrity of this country. This is somebody who, even with Odipo Devon, I thank God that we have data and research professionals who talk about this data effectively. We're being told concurrently that 60% of all these cases are intimate partner violences. Unless we're supposed to render it in Swahili for her understanding, it seems to me that we're having a CS of not only gender, because, you know, maybe we're looking at see if she's representing women alone. We're looking at the fact that there's a possibility that the men that are killing these women have a high possibility of killing their fellow men. So we're looking at strategically a CS who's absolutely unaware of what is happening in the country. We're looking at the fact that these children, we've had a femicide crisis where a young university student was axed inside the institution. And when we say women are looking for money, and thank God you brought this up, it has been so criminalized for us women to be rich. It's like when you're a woman, you're automatically bound to some particular economic structure that when you push a little bit further, it's a crime for you to push anywhere. So for me, her appointment was not only a betrayal, it also showed that the legislature has failed not only me as a citizen of this country, but equally us as employers of all these representatives in this very much a representative democracy. The legislature is not a space for us to find representation, not only of us as human beings in this country, but also of the issues that are happening in this country. Her appointment narrates to me that in the next 5 years, femicide will not only be a crisis here, would have spread it to the rest of the continent because of the mediocrity inside here. So for me, listening to her narrating that all these victims who have lost their lives is courtesy of the fact that they were looking for money, noticing that most of them were killed by their husband, their boyfriends, their ex-lovers who they probably left that life around with. For me, it looks like Jeptumo also forgot that she's also very close to experiencing the same systemic injustices that femicide victims consider. Because again, when we look at all the women that have lost their husbands, it becomes absolutely unlivable for you to be in this society right now. You'll be reminded of your incompetence as a woman. You'll be reminded of the fact that when you're a widow, you are cursed. And in some particular religious spectrums, even being buried when you are a femicide victim is already a propagandistic information back to the society. She's not only a failed mediocrity appointment, she's also very much a suitable example of what we say when we say we want competent women. She's a very good example of incompetency. And that does not speak to her entire structure. It's on the fact that when you're called upon by citizens to speak for us, you chose to speak for the perpetrator.
Okay, that's a good point to take a short break. Jared will be coming back with you because gender-based violence just doesn't affect women. There are men who find themselves on the receiving end, and perhaps due to societal expectations, they're not too forthcoming with such evidence or the narration of the incidences where they were attacked in one way or the other. We take a short break. This conversation continues on the other side. Stay with us.